The views and opinions expressed by the hosts do not state or reflect those of the company and its management. Furthermore, the assumptions, views, opinions, and insinuations made by the hosts or the guests do not reflect those of the show, the management, and the company.
Identify, discussed, understand. Casting live from Manila, Philippines, we are Simply Security, helping you streamline security easily.
Good evening, Philippines.
Good evening, listeners.
Welcome back to another episode. 28th of April 2021. I am Miles Melia Competente.
We're really glad to have you again tonight. And for those who are new in the show, welcome and thank you for shout out to the name is Eric Kalindogan.
Welcome to Simply
Security easily.
It will be an exciting night, Eric.
Yes,
Evening,
it will indeed be. Yeah. So how have you been?
It was good. I would like to send a shout out to all the members of the security industry, safety and security industry, Eric. Allow me to greet them.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, the Philippine Alliance on Safety and Security Management Incorporated or PASAM Incorporated. Sana tama yung sinabi ko. But I am very, I learned a lot. It was a whole day event last week, and I have been, since I've been in this world or realm since September 2020, it seems like, it's a continuous flow of information, especially with that kind of exposure with the PASAM Incorporated. So yeah, it was great. I think I became a better security learner with that experience, Eric.
I'm
and
really
the silver
glad.
point was there too.
Yeah, true. I'm really glad to hear that, Miles. Na parang, you first started with Simply Security as really a non-security professional,
Baby.
kumbaga. Yeah, coming from the media. So I think it's a good thing to know na, more and more people are appreciating what corporate security and security really is, outside from the usual image that this industry has.
So tonight we are very honored to have a very renowned retired military official, an accomplished security and business continuity professional who will be sharing his insights about our topic tonight.
Indeed, he is currently the leading corporate and business security expert who held top global security directorial and management positions in various global multinational companies such as Wyeth Nutrition, Pfizer of the Asia Pacific. He is also a certified protection professional or CPP by ACES International and a CBCI certified by Business Continuity Institute.
He is also a retired colonel, as I mentioned earlier, Jeff or Eric of the Philippine Army. He is a 1983 West Point graduate with 30 years of long and distinguished career with the Armed Forces of the Philippines. He's also an airborne, Ranger, Special Forces, Intel, and Counter-Terrorist qualified. During his military service, he was awarded of the Presidential Medal of Merit by former President Fidel V. Ramos for his integrity, devotion to duty, and commitment to professional competence and moral excellence, and was also awarded by former President Corazon Aquino of Distinguished Conduct Star, the AFP's second highest decoration. He was then also awarded the Distinguished Service Star, the AFP's third highest decoration.
Very well decorated. And I would also want to say that he also co-written a book entitled Sentinels of Freedom, 100 Years of Presidential Security. and has papers published by the De La Salle University's Asia Pacific Social Science Review, Ateneo de Davao Stambuli Journal, U.S. National Defense University, U.S. Army War College, and Matters Magazine.
Ladies and gentlemen, Simply Security audience, our honor to welcome in this podcast retired Colonel Dencio Acop.
Good evening, Colonel Acop.
Thank you, Eric and
Hello,
Miles, for
sir.
that. Yeah, thank you for that kind introduction. Salamat po. I thank you for inviting me to this program. I'd be happy to join whatever I can share with you guys tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. No, sir. Thank you very much for accommodating our invitation. In fact, it's been tawag dito, we really tried looking for ways on how to communicate you. For those who are not familiar, especially for Miles, when I first started, when I first started in the security industry, my very first ever ACES meeting was presided by Colonel Acop, and
Wow.
that somehow inspired me to pursue this industry. And now I've been in the industry for more than a decade. So thank you very much, Colonel Acop.
Oh,
And
that's
someone
good,
wants
Eric.
to,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's good, Eric. I just saw a note from Ramil Maravillon. I
yeah,
know
I
him.
was
Yes.
about to say that.
He's a former colleague. He's a former colleague, and he's a good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said hi. All right, so let's start the conversation. Colonel Acop, let's start this with a question coming from an individual who's just starting to familiarize yourself with this industry. Now, can you explain to us what is business continuity and what is the relation between security and business continuity?
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you for that question, Miles. I'll do my best to explain it in such a way that it'll be somewhat easily understood, no, by
Mm-hmm.
a neophyte. It's it's quite it's really a big topic, and from what I have, of course, when I undertook the course, and then had to take an exam, to get
Mm-hmm.
qualified to get certified. But really, it's not that complicated. Sometimes it intimidates a lot of people, especially
Right.
just like in any other matter. You're not really still familiar with it. It's quite intimidating. But once you really then you realize,
Right.
and business continuity is such. Business continuity is really nothing more um, than a coming up with a plan
Mm-hmm.
for every business to have in order to have and I'm probably going ahead here, but in order to really have business resilience.
Right.
Business resilience means the ability for a business to continue operating despite challenges. Despite
Mm-hmm.
challenges that make it difficult for any business to operate, like the current pandemic.
Right.
I'm pretty sure most, if not all, businesses, big or small, are really affected by the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And business continuity is all about uh, the process that entails any business really. Doesn't matter whether it's big or small, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to come up with some kind of a plan so that when things go wrong, it will still be able to operate.
Right.
I'm trying to simplify it. It is really that, no? And of course, what makes it a little bit complicated lang is the process that is needed, because it really has to be done quite properly,
Right.
so that the company can come up with an honest to goodness plan,
Mm-hmm.
that a plan that is really doable when things go wrong. Like, there's so many challenges, threats
Mm-hmm.
to business, right? Whether it's natural or man-made.
Man-made. Right.
So yung plano na yon, supposedly, it should be able to address or help the company cope with the challenge. So paano yon? Siyempre may proseso yun eh. Before the company can come up with a honest to goodness plan, it has to do a lot of homework first, diba? And one of the toughest things for any company to do when it comes to business continuity management really is to first be able to do a risk assessment. A risk assessment. A risk assessment is an assessment of the threats surrounding a business, but more from a macro macro environment. Yeah, from a macro perspective or environment. So and you can Google risk assessment and what that process entails. Diba? It's about you can do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats kind of an analysis, which is really more concerned about threats coming from the external environment. It also entails, of course, some internal eventually, but apart from the risk assessment, there is usually a more inward kind of a threat assessment, and it is a internal assessment done by a company, which is more unique, really, which is really unique to that company. It doesn't matter what industry it is in. It's really more like that company by itself, how it operates.
Right.
It involves full participation by members of the company, who are very knowledgeable about the different processes the company is involved in. So maybe you have to have a knowledgeable representative from, if it's a
From BCP
manufacturing
champion.
company. You have to have have champions from every department. So whether it's a manufacturing company or distribution company, you have to have these department champions, so that when they attend meetings, they are the ones who are people of authority. They will say, okay, this is how we do it. So if all champions, experts are there, then you can map out, what are really the critical processes that are involved, right? So, and hopefully, assuming that this is done, all the critical processes are mapped out in every department, then that's a very good data right there. That's very important. That's very critical, because those are the, and from there, the same guys will be able to identify what are the threats to every process. So sila yung magmamap out nun. And ideally, a business continuity manager is to complete this process. He's not the one who does everything. He's just one guy. All he does is really
Who links them up? Parang ganun.
yeah, he's the one who tries to complete the process, so that the
Right.
company will be able to come up with a business continuity plan. Top management, so that from top management, so that people will listen to him. Other mentioned. That's really where it all begins, from these meetings, na identifying that can happen to these tan pwede mangyari yung ganito. What are we gonna do about it? What are the resources we need to address? For every for every possible threat to every process
Scenarios.
identified. Yeah, so medyo marami yun eh. Have all to be identified. like business individually again as per company kasi syempre iba-iba yung ano eh. Iba-iba talaga yung mga timelines na yan per company.
Right.
Even if companies belong to the same industry, it still doesn't mean na pare-pareho yung kanilang tolerable
Of course.
times of tolerable limits of their limits, right? So
Yeah.
co-computing ngayon ng mga experts na sinabi ko yon, whether they come from, sometimes hindi lang isang tao yung mag-co-compute nun eh. Sometimes it's a combination of people from production, for instance, or quality, supply chain, mga ganun eh. So it's quite complicated,
Yeah.
but not really. It just depends on the company. Ang importante eh ano eh magawa yon. Maganda is management will be able to come up with this data, which is really important.
Important.
Sa
Right.
problema kasi
Mhm.
ang problema kasi hindi masyadong ma-appreciate ng ano eh ang business continuity pag wala pang nangyayari, you know? Just like security.
Reactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colonel, question po. When is the perfect time to adopt the business continuity plan? When is, yun nga, you were saying na it will be appreciated when there's already a problem or a crisis that is happening. But when is the perfect time for a suitable time for an organization to adopt that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Miles. The short answer to your question is yesterday.
Yeah, true. I was about to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, look at what, and there is not a more perfect time to
Right.
to talk about that and see its relevance than today, right?
Yeah.
With the pandemic. So ngayon lalo na ngayon talaga na I'm sure, you know, especially with every business affected by the pandemic, I'm sure marami nagsisisi diyan even nung umpisa pa lang na uy, meron ba tayong plano? Anong gagawin natin? Ganon, di ba?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's probably even the first time for companies to hear about what business continuity, ganon, di ba?
Yeah.
Meron ba lang ganyan? So, and then lucky for those siguro na merong business continuity plan kasi in a way kahit papaano they have this plan and so they have something to begin with.
Right. A guide.
And then just tweak it to see where it fits. Pero if you have nothing to begin with, syempre, that's the only time. Ngayon, I'm pretty sure. So it's also about resilience. Resilience. Kasi nga resilience means you are still able to survive, to continue operating despite the challenge.
Colonel,
Diba?
speaking of business and the pandemic, what do you think were the main challenges of many companies and organizations here in the Philippines when in the perspective of business continuity?
When the pandemic started,
Yes.
hindi nga masyadong popular ang business continuity sa atin. Not I'm sure maybe now it is because of the pandemic. The pandemic has forced companies to really think more about business continuity. But I'm sure nung umpisa, I'm sure most companies are not really aware about business continuity planning. I'm sure many companies probably don't even have a business continuity plan.
All right.
And even if they do, my concern is that it's probably not a well-made uh, plan. Kasi when
Parang
I
it's
was
more of
working,
compliance.
yeah, it's probably, I would say so. Kasi when I was still working and doing security and business continuity management, I saw that, firsthand. Nakita ko na maraming kumpanya talaga, unang-una, wala silang awareness masyado sa business continuity planning. Kasi business continuity planning maybe beginning like about 5 years ago. Parang
Mm.
parang siya kasi nag-take over from enterprise risk management, ERM.
Yeah. Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
Kaya lang siguro kaya ang nakita kong difference is that yung business continuity management kasi, it has become all encompassing.
Mm-mm.
It's acquired a much larger scope than ERM.
Mm.
Yung ERM kasi noon parang it limited itself to certain businesses and processes, pero yung business continuity nakita niya na doesn't really matter what industry, what organization. The thing is, when disruptions occur, they occur, they can hit anyone. So
Right.
yung business continuity management is this body of knowledge that was able to put everything together and say now, sige, okay, here now we have this we have collated everything, and we've come up with this body of knowledge which is really any business entity. And in fact, lumid na yung when I encountered business continuity management, parang pati nga yung continuity. It's really the entire business eh. You really have to go by department eh. Yung security nga, di ba? Hindi naman siya yung entire business eh, even security eh. It's also part of the business, but it's not the entire business. But business continuity is looking at the entirety of the business. Anything that can go wrong. Not only security. I mean, you're talking about any department. It could be production, supply chain,
Operations, HR.
anything really. Yeah. So and whether it is an enabler or a core department, everything can be hit. Of course, security has a role in it, but certainly it would be inaccurate to say na security is BCP or security is as a major role player in this business continuity management. It's really not. Anyone can take on the role of a business continuity manager. You only need a guy who understands the entire, who has comprehension for the entire business, how it operates.
Yeah. I think it depends on the situation.
Like what?
Sir?
Sige nga, Miles, anong situation ang iniisip mo?
I mean, if it's really that security related, then you can say it should be security led. It should be something like that. Am I right?
Kasi depende nga yun eh. Kasi di ba I talked earlier about mapping out every critical process.
Yes.
Di ba? And then coming up with possible or potential courses of action to address every critical process failure. So it's across the board.
Yeah.
So even if you say na security yung merong lapse, even every department is supposed to have its own potential course of action to address. Right. Diba? So siguro security can address its own, but it probably is not in the best position to address every other department because it doesn't have the expertise for that.
I think the
it only has
takeaway
the
here,
expertise for its own.
Yeah, I think the takeaway here, Miles, correct me if I'm wrong, Colonel Acop, but when you talk about kasi business security, business continuity, you have to understand that all business processes, departments, stakeholders are actually linked together, or a particular disruption on a particular department has an impact to the rest of
Everything
the,
is
yeah,
connected.
Yes.
for the rest of
That,
the business,
yeah,
ano.
exactly,
So
exactly.
if you are, let's say, I'm coming from the human resources, and then something, a disruption transpired in my operation, you
Mm.
should know how to address that. Not only looking at the benefit of your department, but for the benefit of the entire business.
The
Parang ganun.
Yeah,
organization.
well,
Yeah.
the objective kasi is to be able to bring back promptly or soon as possible
Yes,
yung process na yon to normal.
right.
The
Mm.
normal kasi yung
No.
normal, that is the assumed ano na level by which the company will be able to continue operating. So
Yeah.
we want to quickly bring it back to that level, however it is you're capable of doing. And of course, if you have a plan prepared for that, then it is expected that
Sorry to cut
yeah,
you,
go
Colonel. You
ahead.
were saying something?
No,
Okay.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, Colonel. So we were mentioning a while ago those challenges of Philippine businesses or Philippine-based companies in this pandemic. How about, in your observation, how about those companies who already have their VCPs there? It's already activated. But what do you think, or what you have observed on the shortcomings and mistakes that they may have encountered or they did encounter in line with the lockdowns and dealing
Yeah.
with
Well,
Mm.
pandemic?
well, first thing about that is that I'm sure there have been a lot of problems encountered by even if we just talk about Philippine companies at the start of the pandemic. Kasi syempre even the pandemic naman, it wasn't expected.
Right.
So
Mm.
it wasn't really expected. So I'm sure it's even possible na it's not really uh, even if companies probably came up with some plan, probably wasn't even included in the list of threats, no? Pandemic. So syempre doon pa lang makita mo uh, walang plano to speak of really. And even if there was, then I'm sure it would have been uh, lacking with a lot of detailed planning.
Mhm.
Kasi that is the thing with a potent business continuity plan
Mhm.
for a business continuity plan to be effective, it really has to have a lot of accurate detail.
Yes.
It's almost like kung naranasan mo na noon, so you have a lot of takeaway wisdom, right?
Experience.
Information.
Yeah.
Now you can like
Right.
that eh.
So what
That's very parang best ano na lang eh. Best efforts na lang ang nangyayari eh.
Right.
So that's what I'm afraid of kasi yun ang nakita ko nung ano nga kasi nga uh, lack of detail. So yung mga when I say na I've seen a lot of improperly done business continuity plans, I refer to that basically. Yung may plano nga but pagbasahin mo naman yung plano, I'm sure you makikita mo doon eh, there's only a lot of motherhood statements.
Right.
Mm.
But no,
The abstract.
but no detailed ano. So kung tutusin mo, useless yun eh pagdating sa real scenario. Those things are useless because it doesn't tell you anything.
So,
Kumaga sa kwan eh, even at di ba sa plano, merong ano yan eh, merong strategic all the way down to tactical eh. It's all strategic, there's no tactical. There's no detail.
yeah.
See? So, ang nakasulat doon yung alam ng isang general. Pero yung dapat alam ng mga sarhento sa baba is not there. All they read
Right.
is also the same material that the general reads.
Mm-mm.
So, who really knows the details? No one. Because everyone is just grasping at straws.
Right.
No one really knew. And so no one can really put down things because no one knew. And plus, where would they get that info if they haven't done the homework? Like yung sinabi ko kanina na, kasi nakita ko yung proseso na yun talaga yung pinaka buhay ng business continuity management. Actually, the business continuity plan, yun na lang yung pinaka-resulta ng business continuity. The thing that I refer to is the BIA, the business impact analysis. That is the internal analysis done within the company to identify threats to its critical processes. It's called business impact analysis, no? It's very detailed talaga yun. Walang bola doon kasi hindi mo pwedeng bolahin yun kasi yun ang purpose doon para walang bola. Every expert, comes to the meetings and they're the ones who say na, ito yung critical processes within our department. So ito rin yung mga, and then when a process is identified as critical, it means if something goes wrong with that process, then it has a reverberating effect on the rest of the company. It means na there's going to be a delay on operations, there's going to be delay on output, there's going to be a delay on supply chain, on marketing distribution. So there's an impact to the company in real terms, in terms of inventory, profits, things like that. So yun yung pinagbabasehan nung criticality analysis na yun. So it's a serious business, hindi mo pwedeng bulahin yun So lahat na department, so if it's done religiously by every department, then from that information, then you should be able to come up with an honest to goodness business continuity plan, because you know exactly what can happen, everything that can happen if it happens, the time lag that you need to work on before you start losing blood, before you start losing serious money and go out of business. Yung ganon So yun ang purpose ng business continuity.
May take away from what may take away from what Colonel Acop have explained is like there's really no parang perfect plan, but a plan is important. But in the event, let's say,
Eric, wala naman talagang perfect plan
Yeah. So it will
kaya
still
nga plan because that's the best thing you can do. You plan.
Right. So it will still be critical to have those people on your side who would know how to act, or how to strategize or how to respond to certain disruptions when it balances out. Kasi minsan what I've noticed as well, Colonel Acop, is that sometimes you have like organizations wherein they would say na I'm okay na because we have BC really protect them to have like
Thing. And then there's also a time for it to come together depending on the kind of threat. Normally, if it's a safety threat, then that's a very good opportunity for the entire company to exercise a drill. Kasi nga, usually yung safety threats, it involves the entire company. Doesn't matter what department, diba? For example, fire drills, mga ganyan. So, yun, na-exercise yun or an earthquake drill. Pero it really has to be exercised. The plan has to be exercised, and the plan has to be updated annually at least. Dabang tuloy-tuloy siya. Hindi siya pwedeng I have a plan and ito na yan.
It should be a living document.
It's a living document that you have to continually do each year, and then so there may be some changes, something to add or maybe something to update, and then it has to be approved by top management, so that for the year, and then next year you do it again. Yung ganon klaseng proseso siya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colonel, I just want to bring the conversation or the discussion back lang in terms of security, just for the benefit of most of our participants today. In your observation again, of course we know that most of our security professionals were very vital during the pandemic. Aside from being frontliners, sometimes they have to be really within the company during those times na everybody else were like remote working. My question there is, aside from the typical security functions, have you seen any parang best security practices that emerged, that of our audiences?
Well, I haven't, because I was already retired when the
Ah,
pandemic started. So I was no
I
longer
see.
working for any company. But pero madali lang naman i-assess. I read a lot, and I'm still in touch with the industry. So, and I still know how it. I can only imagine na ano na how security.
Ah,
Kasi una-una hindi naman na, like I said, it's not all the ano naman ng security is definitely critical, but security is an enabler.
right,
Okay, so
right.
syempre, there's no change naman sa responsibility ng security. It's the same. Kaya lang, you have to, of course, with the protocols because of the pandemic. So, syempre, malaki yung role ng security when it comes to making sure with napunta na rin sa kanya napunta na rin yung safety aspect na yon sa balikat ng security, kasi they're the ones who are controlling access
Right.
into the facility by people, by employees or visitors, etc. So ganun pa din, but added added responsibilities, kasi parang naging safety and security.
Right.
Siyempre, they have to make sure na people are following protocols, di ba? Mga ganon. So I'm sure that has been the of security until now.
Mm,
So pero that's really pretty contribution
Right.
to security during the pandemic, kasi yun lang naman talaga ang ano niya, as an effective enabler ng security, pandemic. Let's always bear in mind the responsibility for uh, the pandemic is stuck. Yeah, so but
mm.
but security, it ensures Yeah.
So um, this is actually very enlightening to me, Colonel Dencio, because the overall goal is to normalize the operations of your company, fulfill its its business targets, and of course, we cannot really veer away with challenges
Mm.
such as the pandemic. Before we go on a break, I will leave this question for Colonel Dencio Eric, because when we talk about business continuity, um, business continuity companies, how will this
Right.
kind of conversation be translated to SMEs? So we hope that Colonel Dencio could prepare for that question. We will just have a quick break. When we return, we'll have your answer that hanging question and dive straight in entertaining some of our participants' insights and questions.
And
Only here in
questions.
Simply Security.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Mats.
Tonight's episode is brought to you by Business Profiles Incorporated to strategic corporate risk and security management solutions. Business Profiles Incorporated, our business is to keep you in business. Black Pearl Consultancy, bringing intelligence analysis, travel security, and business continuity support to new heights. Black Pearl Consultancy, intelligence for smarter decisions.
BP Argus Security Services Incorporated. For holistic industrial protection, BP Argus Security Services is committed to the highest standards of providing effective security manpower services. Blue Force Security Services, the security manpower of choice by many companies and organizations in the Philippines. Blue Force Security Services, delivering quality protection and service integrity to your corporate needs.
Chronicle Data and Research Solutions. Chronicle Data and Research Solutions provides comprehensive corporate inquiries and background checks for businesses and organizations. Chronicle Data and Research Solutions, delivering concise, factual, and relevant service through expertise and trust.
Silverpoint Training and Development, the knowledge and skill building arm of Business Profiles Inc., offering the latest, most practical and strategic briefings and corporate trainings in the field of business security.
Casting live from Manila, Philippines, we are Simply Security, helping you streamline security easily.
Welcome back tonight. Colonel Dencio Acop is with us. And before we went on a break, I asked him this question. So micro, small, and medium enterprises comprise of 99.5% of the operating businesses in the Philippines. And as we all know, many of these have been severely impacted by the pandemic. Some MSME owners are quite intimidated whenever they hear about a BCP. Your thoughts and insights on this, Colonel Dencio?
Well, they shouldn't be. If they are intimidated, it's only because, most probably because they're not just familiar with
Yeah.
business continuity. Well, sometimes it sounds intimidating. Wow, business continuity management. What is that? Di ba? Parang kung first time mo siya even me when I first heard about it. And then when you read on it and study it and get to really know it, hindi naman pala ganun ka-complicated. All I learned is that, like I said earlier, it is this body of knowledge that is really concerned about preparing companies to become resilient through every possible threat to its business processes in particular and its business as a whole. So that's all it is. So whatever it is, business entities can come up with their own business impact analysis and business continuity plan. Something that fits it, of course. Like I said earlier, it has to be understood as a ano as a body of knowledge and make it work for you. Kasi
Right.
ang tendency pa sa atin na napapansin ko madalas, tayong mga Pilipino, especially I mean, even in the security industry, we have a tendency to always look for formats for vault files, yung
Right.
tawag namin sa military, yung para bang vault files, para bang pahiram naman ng mo, utigo mo, kukopihin ko na lang
Template,
yung
right.
Okay.
yeah, pahingin ng
Interesting.
template mo. But sometimes it really doesn't work that way kasi once you begin that way, mali na agad eh. Kasi
True.
what works for one company may not necessarily work for you. Kasi even if the concept is generic, it doesn't mean na we have a one size fits all when it
Right.
comes to business continuity plan. Iba-iba yan eh. You have to come up with your own. It has to be unique to you, and you know how why is it that way? Because of the process I just described earlier about sitting down and getting the experts from every line department,
Right.
and kasi sila yung nakakaalam eh. Even nga multinational corporations, okay? I worked for MNCs for all my corporate career, and sila nga eh, even if there's you may call it a template if you want to use that word, but in every market, in every country that they're in, sometimes the way the companies that they own in these different countries need not necessarily operate the same way.
Yeah.
What I mean to say is sometimes, siyempre nandiyan yung blueprint, but the way it's actually done sometimes fits the culture within the country that a branch of the company is embedded in. You know what I mean? So merong blueprint na but for example, Nestle is the number one quotation company. I work for Nestle. Pfizer too, it was a number one pharma company. I worked for Pfizer too. Pero pagdating dito sa Pilipinas, for instance, nagbibigay sila ng leeway for every company to operate, to be effective, for as long as they don't violate any US law or Philippine law. Pero inaakma nila sa kultura ng market to fit the Filipino culture, the Filipino employees, ganyan. So dun pa lang makikita mo na may mga, siyempre yung proseso, even if you talk of, parang there's always an art and science, right? Of course, the science you cannot change, but the art always changes because the art refers to the people, the way they are, the way they operate, and ganun din yun eh. So pagdating dito, pagka ginawa mo yung business impact analysis na yun, lumalabas yun eh. Lumalabas yung how things are done per department, very detailed talaga. So you see what I mean? So it's really unique to the company. You really cannot have yung pahingingan ng kodigo mo, hindi pwedeng ganun eh. You have to come up with your basta you just have to understand okay, you do a risk analysis of your outside environment, and then you do a business impact analysis internally within your organization, and then when you have that and you've identified critical processes, happen as identified, what are the resources you need, blah blah blah, who are the people who are supposed to be in charge of these, or who are supposed to do what, then you work from there, and until you are able to do create a business continuity plan out of that business analysis and have it approved by top management. That's really the process. So long as you understand that.
Ayan.
Yeah,
I think nag-lag
you're
si
back.
Colonel. Alright. Okay. I think what is also just to follow through yung sinabi ni Colonel Acop. Actually, what we've also noticed is that there's also a growing recognition, especially during the ECQ in particular, For all of our for all of our audiences who are coming from the MSME industry or sector, actually the Department of Trade and Industry have been launching several talks, webinars when it comes to business continuity that could
In
fit.
fairness, yeah, I saw that.
It could fit on dun
Oo.
sa dynamics ng mga small, medium enterprise. And so, for those who are interested, you might want to check DTI's website. They even have like, well, sinabi nga ni Colonel, they have their own templates. But what we would recommend is just use this as a guide, but
You
you
have,
have to have the
oo,
liberty to custom fit it or design it based on how it will be
based on your
relevant to your,
context.
yeah, to your business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wala namang contact, no? Kasi like the thing there to remember always is that for as long as the company, I'm pretty sure every company does that, is not violating any law. And if it's a multinational company, for as long as it doesn't violate both the head country law and the country where it is operating in, then there really is no problem there. So ang natitira na lang is how to best do what needs to get done so that it is effective.
Mhm.
So
Right.
walang bolahizing, it should be properly done, you know. Sometimes yun ang isang problema natin sa Philippine context, eh. There's a lot of bolahizing, eh. We've seen before third-party providers, how security service providers are made to come up with the business continuity plan, Can you imagine that?
Mm-mm.
Yung ganon, yung ganon pa lang, even the company itself does not really understand what a business continuity is, I mean, a company, you cannot pass that responsibility on to your security service
Right,
provider.
exactly.
Pagka ginawa mo yun, ibig sabihin, that's very clear na the business itself does not
True.
understand what business continuity is. Akala niya siguro business continuity is a security plan
Mm-mm.
that is so
It's
different, So tatanga-tanga yung ano na yun. If a company does that, tatanga-tanga ang kumpanya yun sa totoo lang. It really deserves to go under pagka gano'n siya mag-isip.
Right.
So, you see,
Opo. Okay.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
again, just to emphasize na we really need to know what we're talking about and really do it well.
Mm-mm.
Kasi
Mm-mm.
even if you come up with a business continuity plan, what kind of a plan is it? Diba? Is it really a proper plan or is it just a for compromise plan? Ganon. So,
Yeah.
and I've tried to explain what should be
Opo.
proper plan.
Colonel, if it will be adapted po to MSMEs, is it going to be as resource extensive as how big corporations do it?
No. Again, like I said earlier, hindi naman ito. This is not about like I said, business continuity belongs to every business entity. It is not the exclusive domain
That's
of
really
big
clear.
companies. If we accept that, then it's like saying na, ang kailangan lang magkaroon ng business continuity yung mga malalaki kasi it is as if sila lang ang malulugi kung sakaling magka-problema. Hindi naman. Like for example, during this pandemic, right? We have seen how big or small companies are equally affected. So doon pa lang makikita mo na no, it's not the domain of large companies alone. It's the domain of every company, big or small. Lahat apektado. Kasi bakit hindi apektado? Well, kasi there are common resources that common to both big and small companies that are affected by the pandemic. Diba? So, tatamaan kahit malaki ka o maliit ka, tatamaan ka. You're talking here of what? Resources like people. Diba?
Right.
I mean, a pandemic. I mean, a pandemic is something that affects you, whether you are big or small, whether you are
It
rich or
doesn't
poor.
discriminate.
No
Yeah.
one is spared. Yeah.
Yeah, so dun pa lang eh. So, and again, even small businesses shouldn't be intimidated about business continuity, thinking, oh, wow, maybe that's only for the big companies kasi they have the resources. Ganyan.
Wala kayong
No,
budget.
you better have your own business continuity plan in case something happens. Given kasi nagbabago naman yan eh. It adjusts depending on your budget, depending on your business, depending on what you have. You work with what you have.
Yeah.
It's
We
still
agree.
business continuity.
Mhm.
Is it and the benefit is it's simpler for MSMEs, right?
Yeah,
Somehow.
MSMEs.
All right,
Yes,
Colonel
the
Lakop, allow me to read some of our participants' insights as well as their questions for you.
Yep.
Okay, so we
We
have
have
Mr. Leo
many
Ferrer.
questions.
Playbook referred from risk and threat analysis and developed updated from
Yeah, yeah. Go
PTX
ahead.
tabletop exercises could help in BCP. The COVID-19 pandemic was a blitzkrieg to the industry. If there will be
Wow.
success, his question is, if there will be succeeding waves, will there be an evolution of roles and responsibilities in the security sector?
Succeeding waves of the pandemic.
Yes.
I don't know what he means. Siyempre yung ginagawa na that will probably only mean na yung ginagawa ng security ngayon will continue,
Mhm.
you know. It will, instead of, if there are expectations of probably, the pandemic being totally gone and therefore security can go back to what it was before the pandemic, then
Mm.
maybe that will be a long shot. Maybe there will be more of exercising security within a context of the pandemic. Kasi nga, hindi pa tapos yung pandemic. That only means na the pandemic scenario will continue and therefore security will just have to continue doing what it is already doing during this pandemic. It's just an extension of the pandemic threat. So security will have no choice but to continue doing that.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
From Moira Galiaga, aside from exercising the plan, shouldn't there be regular evaluation and updating of the plan, meaning it is like a living document?
Oh yes, of course. Yung sinabi ko kanina
Right.
about it being done annually, tapos it even goes all the way up to approval by top management. Yung proseso na yon, that is your evaluation because again, like I said, kasi yung business continuity nga talaga is the responsibility of the business, of the business owner, of the leadership of the business. So, siyempre, business niya yun eh. Kung apektado yung negosyo niya, hindi naman niya pwedeng ipasa sa security yun or sa ano yun, di ba? He's the one responsible for that. So, yung ginawa ng business continuity manager, once the BIA is completed, tapos the BCP is completed, it doesn't mean that it's done. That is presented before the leadership and it is subjected to scrutiny before top management approves it. Plus, not only that, it's also ready. It's a ready document that can be presented to government inspectors when they come. For instance, safety.
I think nag-log si Colonel.
Diba? And it's also one of the ready documents that a company should have. Lalo-lalo na ngayon, I'm pretty sure, lalo-lalo na ngayon because of the pandemic. Hihingin ng, and that's probably one of the reasons too why companies really are now forced to have a BCP kasi
right.
Maaaring yan na yung mga hinahanap na dokumento ngayon ng mga government inspectors, di ba?
Yeah.
Kasi that affects public health, public safety. So it's good to have a ready business
And
continuity
surprisingly,
plan.
even for other industries, like let's say for the BPO and the contact center industry, most of their clients would sometimes, or I think it's already part of the requirement for these companies to present their BCP plans for them to be able to engage to their service. So it's starting to become like a requirement. Sir Colonel Acop, Sir Ramin Maravillon has a question. So he said the landscape of crisis management changed drastically. I think what he meant here for his question is, in the event, let's say a company doesn't have a BCP, and then pandemic happened. How long does it take for a BCP to be established?
Normally,
Well,
may range lang siguro.
ngayon wala nang choice kasi
Success rate.
it's now becoming a government requirement, right? So companies before that didn't have BCP will have to come up with one fast, right? The faster they can, then the better for them. So, pero like I said, so long as it goes through the actual process that I described, then it will be able to come up with a proper BCP. Ang problema lang dyan is baka ganun nga, baka for compliance lang yung gagawin para lang may presinta na dokumento, then they would be fooling themselves if they do that kasi you may have a document but it's not really a document that will help you. But my guess is that if you do it properly, and lalo na ngayon pandemic, and if they're able to do it like almost daily meetings and all of that, I think the company should be able to come up with one in about 3 months, I would say, on the average. Intensive BIA and writing of a BCP. Kasi I'm imagining that it will be a more intensive. It will be more intensively done now as opposed to normal.
Right.
Normal kasi medyo may mga lag time pa eh. Pero ngayon, syempre with the urgency. But and if they try to do it, and you can do it naman daily talaga eh, kasi may urgency eh, and you have no choice because of the pandemic. So it can be done within about 3 months, I would say.
Okay.
And still come up with a proper BCP.
Right.
Approved by management.
Kaya. Okay, now from Sir Giovanni Shalbo po, good evening, Colonel Dencio Acop. May we get enlightenment on the limitation and extension of functions of protective agents being hired by the organization to provide protection to its top officials? Is it possible to also disclose with fellow officers in the company the journey management plan and other confidential details of the VIPs, and included the business continuity plan? He says here, Giovanni Shalbo, regular learner. Your thoughts, Sir Dencio, Colonel Dencio?
I don't know if I got his question correctly. Is he saying is his question about probably sharing information, including knowledge about the BCP to other people that he got from the VIP? Ganun ba yun? Is my
I think what
correct?
he's asking, Colonel, is like, is it on your own opinion, is it allowable for, let's say, your top management to disclose the personal information of the VIPs to protective agents as part of a business continuity plan?
Yeah, the danger of the sharing of that super private confidential information.
I hope I translated it correctly.
Is that correct, Sir Giovanni?
It's not clear to me about how that would be related to business continuity planning. If agents are assigned to certain executives for their protection, hindi naman kailangan mag-share ng more information than is needed. Kumaga sa kwan eh, it goes by the principle of need to know, right? Need to know. So, for example, even protective agents, ano bang kailangan nilang information to effectively protect an executive that does not compromise the company, di ba?
Right.
Siyempre, you only need to share information to anybody really, not even the protective agents, that they need to know to be able to get the job done without doing harm to the company.
Right.
Diba?
Right.
Like for example, for a bodyguard, ano pang information ang kailangan ng bodyguard? Kailangan lang naman niya how to physically protect the executive.
Yeah.
Or although not just physically din, meron ding reputation. Siyempre, if you do VIP protection, you learn things about an executive, and professionally, you're not supposed to share that information
Right.
to anybody. Kasi kasama sa trabaho mo yan eh. You're held in confidence. So, kahit na babaero yung binabantay mo executive, huwag mo dapat sabihin yun. Parang ganon. You keep it to yourself. You know? Ang importante,
Why?
you're able to keep him alive.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. This is not a question on insight though from Sir Hermie Colina. Hello, Sir Hermie. It is always a challenge to conduct testing of your BCP as there will be competing business interests, generating
Mm.
revenue, and
Mm-mm.
pursuing business focus areas and business goals. Your BCP should be adaptive, supported by an agile organization, planning for effects, not the causes. Interesting. Your thoughts in
Mm.
here,
Any
Colonel
insights here,
Dencio.
Colonel Acop?
I agree. I agree. I agree. I have no disagreement with that.
Mm.
But
I think that
the thing that is important there is really, syempre, it's like I said, kasi it's a leadership driven
right, right,
exercise. Ang BCP is like security, like any other in the company anyway, really, diba? There's always that learned principle na syempre it's really going to be effective if it's driven by leadership, diba?
yeah, their
But if it
management.
but if there's disconnect somehow, then of course it's not really going to be that successful.
Right,
So, syempre, the top leadership pretty much really determines
yeah,
the level of success
Siya
even
pa
of a
rin.
BCP.
Oo.
Yeah, that's why it's really the responsibility of the leadership, di ba? Syempre, kung yung leadership mismo wala siyang masyadong appreciation sa BCP, or okay lang sa kanya yung mediocre na BCP, then that's what she's going to get.
yeah, true.
But a serious leader who is really interested in really coming up with what are the threats to his business, so that he can do what he needs to do in case something bad happens, then he will of course provide the guidance and the resources needed to make it happen, right? So depende rin sa kanya, even but if resources become a constraint, then that's something that the business continuity plan for resilience also needs to, to work around with, kasi syempre hindi nga rin pwede na even if you need this to happen, if you don't have the resources, then you can only do so much, right?
Right,
So syempre yung top management does its best to to, to do what it thinks really needs to get done and get the resources needed for that. Ngayon, but with limitations of course, kasi hindi naman unlimited yan ang business eh. So assuming na talagang limitado lang ang resources ng isang kumpanya, then you really have to work within that too, kasi otherwise then it's really suntok sa buwan. So perhaps even business continuity needs to also have some kind of plan A, B, C, in case
right.
it is unable to come up with the optimal because of lack of resources, then we go to plan B, ganyan. The overall goal pa rin is to be able to have resilience
Right.
through the disaster, through the problem.
Colonel, just a personal follow-up question, and probably just to wrap up then this particular segment.
I have one pa.
Ay, sige, sige. I'm just interested to know, like
Okay
for instance, sometimes when it comes to business, politics is inevitable, or even what Sir Hermie have mentioned.
It's part of
There's
it.
always that clash. Yeah, there's a clash of interest when you're developing these kinds of plans. In your experience, what are your? Can you share us some of your best practices, and how do you manage these kinds of conflicts and arguments just for the plan to go through at the end?
Yeah, well, I was lucky when I was doing BCM kasi I had a very supportive leader. So
Right.
he pretty much, uh, approved what I was able to come up with. So even yung presentations were smooth sailing, hindi naman with this kind of leader. So, and of course he was very supportive. So the resources we need get even if they don't appreciate it at first because they don't understand it, or maybe they think that it's a waste of time, or maybe they don't
Yeah.
like you, or maybe they don't like you, they just don't like you. But because
Take it personally.
because of the leadership, then they do it, right? So it's good to appreciate leadership like that. I'm sure it's not always like that. Siyempre, there are others siguro na hindi ganyan. But as a business continuity manager, you can only do what you can do, you know. If they don't support you, then it's not your responsibility anyway. It's the responsibility of the business leader. So, you know, you do what you can. But ultimately, it's the business leader's responsibility, not yours. Your only responsibility is to do the best you can.
Thank you very much, Colonel Acop.
That is very
Miles, you have a
nice.
question?
Yeah, actually, as as you're retired now, Colonel Dencio, I would just like to ask something that you can share. It's not really a mistake, but somehow a learning experience that you cannot forget in relation to business continuity planning.
Uh, an experience that I cannot forget.
Yeah, it could be a mistake, no, but also this big challenge
A
and
lesson.
your lesson from it that our participants could get something that is concrete or um, you can name names, but not
Relatable.
necessarily. But it's yeah.
Ako ano eh, I can't I can't think of any right now. Na ano
Mhm.
um I yung in general my business continuity experience was quite productive. Um, we had a good, like I said, maybe because we had a good leader who was very
Yeah.
supportive.
Mhm.
Sana all.
Yeah, and even yeah, and even with Pfizer, with Pfizer again, I was lucky too because I also had a good boss, and he was also very supportive, and it was also productive. I couldn't really think much of well, I could think of one, but it's not
Major
so much
hurdle.
BC. It's not so much BCM, but it's security related.
Yeah,
If you want me to
yeah,
share it,
that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yes,
Colonel.
you
please.
want me to share it. Well,
Yes, please.
ang problema ko dito sa operating environment natin was the to be honest, no, this is a true story. Siyempre with Pfizer, we were we did a lot of counterfeit investigations,
Right.
and
Mm,
and you know why that and you know why that is because right because of our most counterfeited product in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what that is, right? The blue pill, the blue pill. And so we were supposed to, a number of times here, we were supposed to raid, you know, uh, dens that were full of these counterfeit blue pills. And many times we were unsuccessful. And I suspected foul play by security partners. So that was my frustration here.
I see.
mm.
So it's something I think that we need
Well, that's a learning experience. Yeah.
that certainly needs improving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you so
yun ang
much. I really
naalala.
appreciate that, Colonel. Okay.
Yun ang mas naalala ko kasi yung iba okay naman, they were all good. I couldn't really think of any especially with BCM.
Right.
Isa pa yung BCM exam was a lot easier than the CPP.
Really? Really?
So I was surprised the BCM certification exam I took under Business Continuity Institute of the UK was somewhat easy really compared to the CPP exam.
CPP.
The CPP was probably one of the hardest exams I ever took
Hardest.
in my life. Yeah.
I think I'm not yet prepared to take that, Colonel Acop. So,
But
mag-aaral
are
muna
you
po
going to
ako.
take that any soon? Are you going to
Well,
take that Eric
I,
any soon?
Alin? Yung
well, I
The
still
BCM?
have to study, I think. So, yun. But soon, that's the goal, I think. As a security professional, that's really the goal. So, to get those, at least nga, yung 3 stars
Certifications.
ng ACES International. Yeah.
3 stars? yung pati yung PSP and
Yeah,
CPI.
yeah.
You don't need the others. You only need the CPP.
Yeah, the CPP. I'll take that
Yung iba,
as
Coming
an
yung mga,
soon. You have
advice.
a,
yung
you
mga,
have ano na.
yung mga, yung mga,
Advice.
yung mga iba, ego trips na lang yun. CPP is really the most critical. Once you get the
Right.
CPP, there's no need for the others.
Sure. Okay, so thank you very much for all your questions and comments. Well, unfortunately, we have to move forward to the last segment of our show, which we call Quick Talk. So, Colonel
Yes.
Acop, Quick Talk is very simple. We will just basically
Very
ask you, give you quick questions, wherein you just have to choose, an answer coming from two options, or you could just give us a short answer. You don't have to need to explain it. This is just for fun, and just to end the episode in on a lighter note. All right, are you ready?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
All right.
I'll ask first. Desk work or field work?
Field work.
Dealing with executives or dealing with employees?
Employees.
Oh, what is the most stressful and most rewarding job? Part of your job as a business continuity manager before.
Most rewarding part.
Most
Mm-mm.
stressful and
most
rewarding.
stressful.
Most stressful and most rewarding. Well, most stressful is doing the BIA process. Most rewarding is getting the approval from top management.
I bet.
Totoo.
Being a speaker or being a conference attendee.
Most stressful and rewarding, same thing. Is that the question?
Being speaker or being a conference attendee.
Oh, attendee.
I bet. All right, last question.
Eric?
3 advice you want to give for individuals, Colonel Acop, who wants to pursue the same path you did.
Well, first of all, you must have the interest, of course.
Mhm.
Must be close to your heart. Secondly, you have to be able to ready to put in the work.
Mhm.
And then thirdly, stick with it. Once you
Commitment.
you commit to it.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Thank you so much, Colonel Acop, for your time, and thank you for such a wonderful discussion. We hope you had fun, and we hope to Eric and I will see you in person
Hopefully after this pandemic.
after this pandemic.
Yes,
po.
yes. I look forward to it. Thank you also for having me.
Thank you very, very
Yeah.
much, Colonel Acop. Well, we'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in and participated in Business Profiles and Black Pearl Security Podcast, Simply Security. We hope that you enjoyed and learned something new tonight through this episode, and we also wish to have you again next time. So we're casting live every other Wednesday, 6:30 in the evening. You can also catch the recording of tonight's episode starting tomorrow via Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Just type in Simply Security.
And to get the latest security information in the Philippines and for upcoming events, do not forget to follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn at Black Pearl Consultancy under Information Services and on Twitter at Black Pearl _INC or Inc. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Black Pearl Consultancy and give a like to our videos. We'd
Of
also
course, and
like
also-
to give special
go ahead, sorry.
thanks. We would like to thank our production team, our managing director, Mr. Joseph Guetta, for making this program possible. Go, Eric.
Again, this is Eric.
And kay Jean and kay Jet. Yeah, and I Miss Krisa, the part of our production team. Yes, and I am Miles Melia. This has been Simply Security.
Helping you streamline security easily. Thank you, everyone. See you again on our next
Thank you,
episode. Thank you, Colonel
Colonel.
Acop.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay safe.